If you've been around long enough, and props to you if you've been there since the beginning, then you'll know just how important the Doom franchise has been. A legendary series that put first person shooters on the map, Doom is just as important to video games as Sephiroth's sword is to Arif's back. For every FPS game that's been released, none of them could have existed without Doom invading home computers back in the early 90s. Not only did it help popularize an entire genre altogether, it's managed to remain relevant in the gaming space up until now. At some point though, after the horror-themed version of Doom 3 was released, and I do love this black sheep dearly, Doom 4 had a very rough development cycle where it didn't quite know what it wanted to be, essentially going through development hell and nearly resulting in Doom kind of looking like the opposite of Doom. Mood? Well, it's a different kind of mood, but maybe not a good one. But after listening to Mufasa and going back to the drawing board for the fourth entry, finding out what the next Doom game was gonna be was one of the hypest moments for first-person shooters. Doom 2016. A reboot for the franchise, Doom was a return to form, and much more. Demonic enemies for you to brutalize, weapon variety that BJ, Duke, Gordon, and older Doom guy would approve of, and most importantly, gameplay that reminds you what makes FPS games so damn fun. A well-designed title that took inspiration from ye old shooters of yesteryear, but innovative for modern eyes, Doom was back. A much-needed revitalization that made the franchise relevant again after a nearly 12-year gap. One of my absolute favorites out of 2016, on top of an already stacked year. FPS games were really feastin', as you could say. Playing it again, Doom really doesn't feel old at all. In fact, it felt seriously refreshing. So, with ripping and tearing fresh in my heart, let's take a look at what makes Doom 2016 hold up so well.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Samuel Hayden. I'm the head of this facility.
Doom's story can be summed up in 5 words. Stupid cultists, Doom guy fix. And that's literally it. A bunch of scientists who think hell is the solution to all their problems unearth it onto Mars. Doom guy, or Slayer as he's called now, wakes up to perform his daily routine of choosing violence. Doom's story is about as important as a filler episode is to the plot of your favorite shonen anime. It only exists to give the game its space for the Slayer to go to town. So, why should I care about this at all then? Because irony is why I still love Doom's story. It's in no way deep or meaningful in a commentary type of way, unless maybe it is, but it's the sheer irony that the story is not at all a concern for the Slayer. In the opening segment, the moment that Samuel Hayden attempts to make contact with the Slayer, he literally could not give a shit.
Way that benefits us both.
And the second, as Hayden tries to justify why the facility being overrun was worth the risk, Doomslayer is fed up.
But it was worth the risk, I assure you.
It's a level of self-awareness that I can't help but enjoy, because when you understand that the story has only ever been a backdrop for the Doom series, then you know that this game understands its roots. It's not here to beat around the bush, it's not here to waste your time justifying its plot for the player, you're here to kick demon ass in the most badass way possible. Of course, the game still has to continue its sense of story progression, but it never feels tacky that you forget that you're here to slay. In fact, it's actually kind of a great foil to the Slayer himself because it makes him look more badass. I do like that the world building is there, with all the codices that you can unlock and such. I think it was the right move for it to be optional rather than just throwing it at the player's face, considering its bigger emphasis on gameplay. It's fun that it adds some background fluff to the world, and it can be optionally satisfying for those who are curious. I did read them at least once when I first completed it. It's also by virtue of the other two games that the ironic story component is made even more enjoyable. In Doom Eternal, the world is a bit more fleshed out to have nearly 500% more characters and story, but still maintaining it as more of a backdrop, while Dark Ages is a bit too much for my taste. I wasn't completely opposed to the way it tried to put a bigger emphasis on story, but ultimately I just couldn't get invested in that world. And so, because Doom 2016 doesn't try to take itself too seriously and understand that you are here to rip and tear, I end up loving it more than ever. The real reason why we play Doom 2016, the gameplay is fast, frenetic, at times pretty layered, gory as hell, pun intended, and an absolute blast. A mix of ye old-fashioned boomer shooter while managing to feel aggressively nuanced. Push forward combat, as id Software described it, and it really is an apt description. You are constantly moving in order to reposition and dodge enemy attacks, while juggling your weapon variety to give them in 2 chunks of meat. You also get glory kills, which is a bit on the nose for its naming, where you execute demons with your bare fists when their health is low. You get your full arsenal of weapons from the super shotgun, the chain gun, the rocket launcher, the chainsaw man, the BFG, which is always a solution to everything, plus the ability to have specific weapon modifications that you can swap, giving you the quintessential boomer shooter arsenal. Also, Doomslayer can double jump. Yahoo! But what takes this a step further is mechanical flow. At its most basic core, Doom is a simple, fast-paced boomer shooter where levels are often open arenas for you to take advantage of your mobility and offense. On standard difficulty or lower, demon slaying is a stress-free process where you can use your entire kit to make short work of demons, which is still a very enjoyable experience for a lot of players who don't want to sweat it out. But on the harder sections and difficulties, where the combat is a lot more sweaty, there is a gameplay flow that manages to find a sense of strategy that is enjoyable to master. A sort of rock-paper-scissors system with the way the enemies and weapons work that make the game more than just a shooter. You're incentivized to perform glory kills so that demons drop health, especially when you're low. If you're out of bullets, the chainsaw will magically reveal ammo. If you're overwhelmed, the BFG is a great insurance plan. The rocket launcher for groups of enemies, the super shotgun when you're up close, the Gauss cannon from afar. It's these counters and solutions that feel rewarding when you use them effectively. And that's exactly why I still love Doom. It's that sense of balance with being able to just rip and tear demons in a very head-empty, easy way that is stupidly fun, but also nuanced when you want to sweat things out. Are the other games bad by comparison due to how much more mechanical they are? Nah, not even. In fact, my sweaty side loves Doom Eternal because of how abundant and varied its systems are, which demands more agility and strategy. Dark Ages is also fun for me, because my inner Sekiro and Dark Souls parry scream with joy whenever I pull it off. So in that way, yes, the later games are more mechanically demanding of the player and my get good side friggin' loves it. But I love Doom 2016 just as much because it doesn't necessarily force those mechanics on me and shooting can just be a simple experience. I wouldn't say this is untrue of the other two games, and you can keep things simple and easy with the combat if you want to, but because of the way the weapons and ammo have integrated mechanics, it doesn't feel as fun when you don't utilize them properly, at least for me. This is a personal bias, but Doom being very mobile and fast-paced has always been my favorite aspect over FPS games that tend to favor realism. It's the way they design levels to be more vertical, meaning that you're not just aiming on the horizontal plane, but having to account for height when you're moving and shooting. Arena design, basically. And I find the 3D space much more interesting and fun when you can use all of it. Also, pacing. It's the classic approach of maintaining momentum by not having reloads, being mobile, and weapon juggling that elevate the game to be more than just simply standing in cover and shooting. You feel like an unstoppable badass, and the gameplay ensures that you are the Doom Slayer. Also, Doom has got to be one of the best FPS games that make you dig deep in order to find its secrets. Of course, they're optional, unless your inner OCD demands 100%, but they're really fun when you uncover them, especially for those who have played the original Doom games. So for me, it's that sense of fun shooty balance and weapon nuance for the harder segments that make Doom's gameplay still so awesome today. Doom goes for that sci-fi future look where hell has started freezing over Mars, but with a sprinkling of demonic entities and their intestines. The franchise has always been about this specific aesthetic of blending sci-fi with demonic occultism, and Doom 2016 carries it well even with its 10-year age. The Slayer himself looks pretty good as a green space marine that's covered from head to toe, so you know he is that Doom guy. Though I prefer his design in Eternal and Dark Ages a lot more because I feel like an exposed bicep is such a weirdly defining trait that makes him the Doom guy. The enemy design is also well done, and I like the variation with the different demon types and how distinct their silhouettes look. Imps are imps, Mancubis look gross, and Cacodemons are the adorable one-eyed floating meatballs that we know and love. I think a very defining characteristic is how the demons are designed in this iteration. Obviously, these enemy archetypes have been iconic since the beginning, and making them look hellish and menacing is important, but there's a certain soullessness that makes it very distinct from any other game. It's often the lack of pupils in the eyes of a few demons, as well as them generally looking like walking meatbags. They can feel a bit homogeneous. There's some obvious color variation and silhouette distinction, but I think it's the shaders that kind of makes them look a bit too similar in color under certain lights. Might just be my special eyes. I still like them, and they have a certain hopelessness, sort of horror feel that makes them menacing. Almost a bit like Doom 3 in some cases, but without that early 2000s leathery skin. In contrast, I do prefer the demon design in Eternal and Dark Ages because of how much more detail and color is added to give them personality. A bit of an unfair comparison given how those games came after Doom 2016. But I believe the demons in Doom Eternal are meant to look a lot more like the traditional designs of the early games. Environmental design is great on the presentation side, and Mars looking like the sci-fi hellscape that the series is known for is great as ever. The barren backdrop is always a mood setter in addition to the many sci-fi locations that are present, such as industrial rooms, scientific labs, large high-tech facilities, and of course, hell itself. The scenes are effective in setting up the mood of Doom's world. I did encounter a few issues, such as effects not playing in certain scenes, but the game ran more than fine on my baked potato PC. But my favorite defining characteristic that 2016 Doom has over the other two games is that you never leave the first-person perspective of the Slayer. It's definitely an immersion thing, but I've always loved single-player FPS games where you are never taken out of the character's perspective and meant to see the world through their eyes. I like it in Doom because the game wants you to be the Slayer, and you are that person in the helmet from start to finish. Not that the cinematics and presentation in Eternal and Dark Ages are bad, in fact they look stupidly good, but there's a specific tone that can only be achieved by being in first person only. So the visuals are good, and the game is still a very presentable title. But sound is king. Speaking on the effects first, everything feels amazing. The guns sound distinct, enemy profiles are easily distinguishable, and the Foley is more than appropriate in making the world feel feel audibly tangible. I think my favorite is how gory and visceral the glory kills sound when you perform them. Very bone-breaking and flesh-tearing that makes you glad that Doom Guy is only anti-demon. But the music is and will always be the most distinguishing profile that not only elevates the techno musicscape that the series has always employed, but setting a new standard in high-quality tracks that bring the energy and fervor with slaying demons. If I'm being honest, I love it more than the visual scape. I'm sure some of you have already heard the man, but Mick Gordon, the Spider mastermind composer of Doom, went through an absolutely insane technical process that can only really be described as a journey with the way synthesizers were used to compose the music. In fact, it blew my mind that guitars were initially banned on the project, mainly to avoid some cross-genre that would make Doom sound a little too corny. So the fact that Gordon was able to achieve a very distinct sound profile that not only fits, but defines what modern Doom should sound like, the result is, well, absolutely beautiful. It's not only a great soundtrack for Doom, but I would argue the technical best in the entire franchise. That said though, I am still humming E1M1 at Doom's Gate. A presentation that still holds up well on the visual side, but is honestly a timeless one when, and I can't believe I'm saying this, the Doom music kicks in. Well, what are you waiting for? Go play this game again. Doom is still so damn phenomenal as the FPS that managed to re-establish the franchise after nearly falling into literal doom. But what exactly is the secret sauce behind Doom's longevity? I could name the gameplay, the lack of story, the slaying soundtrack, all these details that contribute to making Doom so great. Ultimately, it all boils down to identity and making it relevant. Identity with Doom, understanding its roots and progressing forward. Identity that Doom is a video game where you want to raise hell, well, on hell. Identity with what makes it so fun. Doom understands this, and fun is what oozes in just about every aspect. An FPS game that was a hit 10 years ago and still slaps hard, even today. But that's gonna do it for today, guys. Thanks for sticking around. There will be more games to play and more videos coming soon, so please stay tuned if you'd like to see more. But for now, I'll see you all next time.